Okay, brethren, please let us bow our heads for a word of prayer again. Let us pray. Gracious Father, be with us as we enter into your word. Give us wisdom as we enter into the straight talk. Bless those listening and help them to grow in grace, in the knowledge of Jesus Christ, and to have the character of Christ in them, prepared for the end. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. Okay. Today we want to talk about self-imaging. Self-imaging. And you may say, well, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say self-imaging? Exactly what are you talking about when you say self-imaging? We want to talk about the idea you hold, or each of us hold, of ourselves. This is what we want to talk about. So our take of scripture is in Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20. Galatians chapter 2, verse 20. Here is what it tells us, as a quote. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, I live. Yet not I. Notice what we said here. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless what? I live. Yet not I. And then what are we told? But what? Christ liveth in me. So the idea of I living or you living is Christ living where? In you. This means to say that every one of us supposed to have an idea of ourselves with Christ living in us. But it so happens that many of us have an old, godless idea of ourselves. We have two ways of gaining a knowledge of ourselves from the world. Either our own speculations of our past, or either by what people say of us. Many people allow what people say of them to think and identify themselves. And as a result of that, they live people's idea of themselves. But God never gave to anyone a knowledge of you to tell you that you are supposed to live based upon what they say of you. If God wants to tell you something about yourself and how you should view yourself, He will tell you through His Holy Spirit. Now in the scriptures which we just read, we are told, I live. That's what we are told. Then we are told, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Let us just look at this for a while. The Apostle Paul is telling us that he is crucified with Christ, but he's telling us that he lives. He said, I live. Then he goes and he says, yet not I. He says, Christ liveth in me. So the I live means Christ living there in him. It means to say that the apostle developed a self-identity of Christ living in him. This is what we need to look at, and this is what we want to look at a little bit more this evening. A self-identity of Christ living in you. Human beings have a tendency of first operating impulsively. Listen to me carefully. Human beings have a habit of first reacting impulsively. When something happens to you, the first reaction has a tendency to be impulsive. Whenever the reaction is impulsive, it betrays the idea you have of yourself, which is so pervasive that that's what you live when a crisis comes or a situation comes. But you may stop immediately and say, what am I doing? Let me stop and let me see what God wants me to do. The moment you begin to take that, it means you have thrown aside an idea you have of yourself that causes you to react the way you react. Let's go more into it. People create their ideas of themselves by self-imaging. When you see a person like a particular mode of dress, they like to speak a certain way, they move with a certain group of friends, and they operate within a clan of people, they have ideas of themselves that identify them with that clan that they are moving with. The ideas they have of themselves, they portray it in their dressing and in their behavior. Now that idea of themselves was not created by God, but created by their own selves. Human beings have a tendency of imaging what they want to be and creating what they want to be. It's like symbol, like a girl who goes before a mirror and she sits down before this mirror and tries all different kind of hairstyles until she sees one where she likes how she looks. And to her, that image of herself is what she likes. And as a result of that, she dresses and moves according to that image of herself. Now, I just use that as a symbol to show you that while the average person does not do that, in their minds they create an image of themselves. But any imaging, self-imaging you structure in your mind, if it is not from God, it is wrong. We had Peter doing this. All the time Peter identified himself as a holy person walking with Christ. Then when society got the sway over Peter, and everybody was cursing Christ, everybody was denouncing him, everybody wanted him to die, a woman pointed Peter out. And she gave him an identity. She said, you were one of them with him. And he denied. Then a second time again, another person said, but wait, were not you one of his disciples walking with him? And then a third time again, another one pointed out and affirmed, you are one of his disciples. We are told that Peter cursed. Mrs. Wright tells us he used obscene language and ghetto. What Peter did, he gave a portrayal of an image of himself that he was not. But he knew that kind of imagery. Those who would curse and ghetto and behave bad, he tried to paint himself that way. So that person would say, oh no, a person with an image like that, you could never have been with Christ. I made a mistake. So he gave himself an image. When Peter recognized that in his mind he had created an image of himself so far away from Christ, he remembered the love of Christ and he was heavily convicted. He was so grieved that he fled from where he was and went in a particular place where the Garden of Gethsemane was. And he fell down and wept and cried and confessed his evil. When Peter confessed then, it fulfilled what Christ told him. When thou art what? Converted what? Right? That would then happen. In other words, Peter, after that happened, would be able to fulfill what Christ would tell him later on. So now Peter had to have a different image of himself, and not the one he tried to impose upon himself for people to say you could not have been with Christ. So now it comes down to us today. When you walk in the street and a person see you, what do they think of you? What image of yourself do you give to people in the streets when you are living? Do you dress a certain way, operate a certain way, that a person would say, that cannot be a Christian? Or do you openly profess what you claim to believe the way you carry yourself in public? You see, my dear brethren, every time you deny what you profess with Christ and appear a certain way to people, you are creating an image of yourself. You are self-imaging and giving an idea of yourself to people that they will view you a certain way and therefore relate to you a certain way.
In other words, it become an idolater.
I have had certain situations. My beard, and I have a hat on my head, covering my head. And a fellow will pass by and say, Salam alaikum. Yeah. I said, no, grace and peace. I would constantly have to give them, and they would be shocked. You see, they see this as violent Muslim, and they're seeking, friendship. So they say, Salam alaikum. And I said, no, grace and peace. Now here is what I'm saying. You have to have an image of yourself that you will portray Christ all the time. Are you listening to me? This is not that as Sabbath over you turn and you are a different person altogether. It is not like that. Because when Sabbath finishes, you're supposed to be even more what you were. Because you gain grace from the Sabbath to be as you are. As Paul said it, by the grace of God, what? I am what I am. Are you listening to me? So you are supposed to be what you are by the grace of God. So self-imaging is a very dangerous thing because it is you creating a knowledge of yourself and a portrayal of yourself by your own mental speculation based upon certain false values that you had, and those false values that you have are what you use to portray yourself to the public as you are. Self-imaging is therefore a species of idol creating with regards to yourself. And this is the reason why I have seen this happen already. I knew this guy. He was a terrible crook. He was a terrible bandit. He heard something about Christ and he quickly jumped on the evangelical bandwagon. And who could put on the image of an evangelical preacher like him? This fundamentally flawed individual in his value system was able to create a preaching image of himself that he actually fooled all those evangelicals that were with him. Within a few months, he was preaching in an evangelical church. A year after, I put the television on, and he was preaching and calling people to repent. I was so shocked. I said, but I know this guy. This guy never changed. This guy was able to fool all those evangelicals, put on a preaching image, and they viewed him as this top Christian. And so he started to get wealthy. He had his own office, he had his own car, and he met some young girl who was very, very pretty as he thought. And so they were together, and he was preaching and preaching and preaching. But whenever you put on an image of yourself that is false and that is susceptible to sin, it never lasts. Something bad happened. I stopped seeing him on television. And a day I'm passing on Frederick Street and going through an arcade. Somebody called out to me and stopped me. When I look, it was him. He was now selling white under jerseys on the street. That's all he was doing, selling white under jerseys on the street. He had lost everything. When I looked at him, he was as crooked as he was before, and actively impulsive with it and worse. And he had looked like if he went through a terrible crisis, and the whole ministry was broken up, everything, and he lost everything. Eventually, the girl saw him for what he was, and he lost everything. I don't know exactly what he did, but all I know is that he was on the street selling the white jerseys that people wear underneath, that men wear. That's what he was selling at. Now here's the point. Whenever you create an image of yourself, you create an image of yourself before people, that they may view you a certain way, that you can have your way with them. All school children go through that process. Because the child may be home and they don't even say a bad word in the house. And they don't behave a certain way. But if the parents were only to learn, the parents would learn in the school, they would meet an alien as their child. Completely different to when they're home. Because the child will be in all the immorality, doing all the cursing and all the bad behavior, as the child creates a public image of himself in school to suit their environment. I have known men who would take a briefcase, put a few paper in it, put on a jacket, put on a tie, and cut their hair in a certain way, and just keep walking around business people. But Brother Rick would have known one of them. And they would be walking around other people. So I have seen that a couple of times. And they would see how busy they were, as if they are seeking up Caesar, Rothschild's business. And you know when these people work for Rothschild, they work busy. But when they work for Yahweh, they're lazy. And they would see them walking up and down with this briefcase for Rothschild business, you know. And when you check, they are about nothing. They try to create a wealth image of themselves and live this wealth image among people, hoping that wealthy people will take them into their confidence, make some kind of an investment, and they will get money. All those are the smart, crooked self-imaging that people practice. There's a particular one that used to be on television, Solving Crime. If you knew the individual years ago, the individual was a fake dentist. They would put on an imaging of a dentist and a moving around dentist. After all, many people lost their teeth for that individual. self-imaging. That did happen. Now, why am I saying this to you? I give you some extreme examples to show you cannot fool God, you cannot fool holy angels, and you are not fooling evil angels. Because self-imaging is meant for you to present yourself a certain way to people to see if you can gain some benefit from it. But as you sit here in front of me and you look, you are now to judge yourself and ask yourself what image you want of yourself. Now listen to me very carefully. Before anything happened to you, the mind must be used. God will not do anything for you if you close your mind. The mind must be open. The mind must receive a knowledge. And only after the mind is open and the mind receives a knowledge, then the mind can begin to forge an identity based upon the knowledge that comes to the mind. That is why anybody who has an identity of themselves with Christ, it must start with your mind. Here is Paul again. I am what? Crucified with Christ. Nevertheless what? I live. Then he says, yet not I, but what? Christ liveth in me. It means that Paul had an imaging of himself with the character of Christ. But to him, the image he was because some character was there in him, and that is in his what? Mind. Are you listening to me? Therefore, it is not wrong to have a mental self-imaging of yourself. The question is, whose image and superscription is it? That is the point. Whose image is it? Because God wants all of us to identify ourselves with Him. Are you listening to me? How did Paul put it? For me to live is Christ. For me to die is gain. So to live is Christ. God wants you to have self-imaging with Christ. Once you know the truths of Christ, listen to me. In the early days of my Christian development, I had to find out certain things. There was no Laodicea to teach you, because Laodicea didn't know. They couldn't even teach. I used to go in Laodicea, and this is the pulpit here. I would be like the second bench, as a rule, close up. And the ministers and elders would be saying a lot. But they couldn't teach you. They couldn't really teach you anything, because they didn't know. So I had to find out all by myself with the Bible. Now when it is the first time you make plenty mistakes, I used to ask myself, who am I? When I became a Christian, the first thing I asked myself, who am I and what do you want to be? After that, I had a lot of, if I could call it, dreams. And some of them were not dreams, like visions. And all would present me as somebody preaching, as somebody teaching. So I had to decide what I wanted. In my environment, there were plenty of bullies and violent people. In the world before, I did not used to mingle with violent people and obscene behaving people. But you cannot help avoid it. You will be home and a person will pass through a yard with a gun in their back pocket. I remember when I was a young person, there was this guy. He had one foot and he held his crutches. And he appeared by our fence and he was trying to run with his foot. And my mother said, "Come, quick, quick, quick." And she invited him and sent him in the bedroom under the bed to hide. And about 8 people came up with cutlasses to kill him. And they came by the fence and they cursed and they get on and they threaten and they want to pursue, they want to break and threaten and they kill and they want to kill and they want to. This is the kind of area I grew up in facing. I even remember a special event with my father. He was a kind of strange guy. And a lot of strange things happened with him. A day, about 10 to 11 people gathered outside the front gate. They had cutlasses in their hand. And they were threatening to kill him and they will chop him up and they will kill him. My father had a very soft voice. And he came out and he watched him. Put his arm and he said, "Oh, all right." And he went back inside. Put on a dress shirt, dress pants, like if you have tie and everything on. And he just walked out of the house, and all of us were shocked he was going to die. Because there were these people with these cutlass and sharp, and they threatened to kill and so on. And he walked down that stairs, and he opened that gate, and he walked right out. I remember looking, and I see all the people fell back. And he just calmly walked through the wet. So we were all shocked. We didn't know what happened. Half an hour later, while they are there riding around and cursing, he just walks right back, cool, up right through the back of the house, and that was the end of the whole story. But I'm showing you that is the kind of area I live. So when I grew up facing very violent people, threatening. Indeed, while I was preaching one day to a person in the area, and I was preaching and the man was being reached with the truth. Some guy who was living not too far was telling me, "Move from here, you don't want to hear anything." So the other guy was telling me, "Stay right there, he want to hear." And the other one was saying, "I'll let you move from here." And the other one was saying, "Stay there and preach." And he was rejoicing when he heard this preaching. And the guy who was there was drunk and he had a bottle of rum and he got so angry. And as he raised the bottle to rush at me, I am telling you, no rainy sky, rain just suddenly started falling and stopped him in his tracks. He literally stopped with the bottle in his hand like this. Put it down, turned around and went home to get out of the rain. And that is the only thing that broke up the meeting. The rain. So that just shows you that. Now when you face this, this is the time that you are tested as to what kind of self-imaging you have of yourself. Something happened to me one day. I was crossing Henry Street to go by Golden Door Plaza for those of you who know. There was a young guy walking. But where I reached and stand up. And he literally walked into me and bounced me. No problem, it happens all the time, doesn't it? me out and tell me I put myself in his space to make him bounce me. And make him bounce me. I said, excuse me? And then his words changed as an I bounced him. I said, excuse me, I was standing up. It was you that bounced me. And I said, besides, look, these things happen all the time. He said, you don't want to hear that, you don't want to hear that, and you run off. A totally unreasonable, violent little boy. Yeah. Totally violent little boy. As he began to get conviction, when I started talking to him, I see he close his mind, push it off with violence, and just walk off. Some master nearby ran to me to console me. So, I am just trying to show you. You know, there are many testimonies, you know, but let me give you one more testimony. And this is a nice one, a real nice one. So I'm walking in Sandy Valley, and I'm going by the drugstore. And a woman with jacket, like if she had some kind of office job, she came and she stopped and she said, excuse me, you are the guy on television? I said, yes. And she said, let me tell you something. And she stopped and told me. And she said, I sat down home and I watched that television program on Republicanism. She said, I have never heard anything like that. And I am telling you, that is the real truth. And I am saying, if this is the truth, I am telling you, brother, I was blessed and I was reached. And I thank you very much. And the woman rejoiced. When she spoke, I recognized seeds had been planted in her heart. What do you think? Amen. And I'm telling you, when that church building is built up there brand new, I will point out and say, that is the woman who I was talking about. Because seeds have been planted. And there are numerous, I can give you, numerous. Little children, big people, all reached by the truth. Now back to what I was saying. So when you have self-imaging, you have to determine what image you want to portray. Some people, when they were young, they were very violent and bad. They get older, and as they meet the bad people, they always try to frame being bad still. When they know that they don't have the bodily energies and capabilities of acting that way. The best thing to do for those people is to accept Jesus Christ. And when you accept Jesus Christ, like a former persecutor like Paul, a very violent man Paul was, extremely violent, so much that he would run after man, woman, and child and stone them to death, stand up and watch, and feel good to know that he has killed them in the name of Yahweh for the Jews. Until God says, you violent persecutor, you come and follow me and you're going to face the same persecution. It all depends upon the image you have of yourself. Self-imaging, God gave you a mind to take that mind and to use it to have an image of yourself. But the image God wants you to have of yourself is an image based upon Jesus Christ. Christ must be where? In you. So that once he's in your heart, you're going to use what is in your mind to determine the image you portray to people. Let me show you something. There's a time I used to work in Olsen's Marketing some years ago. Olsen's Marketing. And they had a particular problem with stealing in that place there. There was a particular room with goods to sell. And a small box store at that time would all be $200, $300. If a person could get one of those packets, they can put it anywhere in their body. They had watchmen who used to check your bag, but the watchmen didn't used to take down all your clothes and check you. Those watchmen were exports, men. Just to show you how expensive those goods were. And they had problem with stealing. So the manager of the place watched around and see who could he get to work in that place. And he saw the Christian with his Bible sitting around work. Myself. And he said, you. He know I'm a Christian. He know I wouldn't steal, so he gave me the job. And I end up getting a job, and I envied position because it was the only air-conditioned room in the whole business with the kind of goods they had here. And I end up getting that job just for reading the Bible and studying the Bible. You see, when you portray an image of yourself from what? Christ, that image goes a long, long way to make you reach people and teach the truth. And this is the reason why in self-imaging, when you are crucified with Christ, justification, Paul says, I live, yet not I, not the old man, but what? Christ liveth in me. And then he further explains it. He says, the life I now live in this flesh, I live by the revealed truths of Jesus Christ, who loved me and who gave what? Himself for me. Because the revealed truths of Christ, the character of Christ was now in him, and that was how he's going to view himself. Amen? Amen. No tricks behind the scenes. Sister? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, let us say the scenario is that you are convicted to tell somebody something that they're doing that is wrong, right?
Yes.
And when you go to show them that now, they are portraying themselves as that they are right in the matter. And they're showing themselves, they're showing to be that the Holy Spirit never convict them that they are wrong. How it is with dealing with somebody who has that image of themselves, what convict and show you that they are wrong. But they are saying that the Holy Spirit never show that they are wrong. So you're actually saying that you are wrong for what you are saying in a sense.
What was the word?
Somebody is who are the
Carnal man. Now, you obviously would get many people denying the truth. And if you don't get it, then everybody has to be converted. But you would always get people denying the truth. Now, let me tell you this. I have met people who they deny everything I show them. Every single thing I show them, the truth, they denied it. Even though later on it was happening again, while it was happening, they were denying it. You would always get that. The reason why people behave that way, many of them do not want to commit themselves to the truth because they feel that they will lose some pleasure or something great they are experiencing right now. And because they don't want to lose it, they will never ever admit what you are telling them. Now sometimes there are people in the body of God's people, and the human mind is like this. Once there is a problem here. When you have the truth, this is the truth in the church, and something erroneous that pleases the passion occur. In this state, the person has made the choice between the truth and the error that pleases the passion. But then there is something that happens. Once they know the truth, and this touches them, the first call is to deny the error for the truth's sake. Yes, sir. Yes.
There was a particular occasion with me, my mother, and my grandmother, and my grandfather was in the van. But then after this man, he was only thinking about himself. He gonna take 4 set of cheese and put it in his pants. When after people catch him now, the time to pay for it and then get out of here. But then after, he only had money to pay for 3. But then after, one of the person tell him to pay for it. Otherwise, he'll go in the police station. But then after, if you see how he start to get on of that thing, then after when I call the police, he even want to go inside the car. Then after when I put him in the car, I went to tell my grandfather. My grandfather said, when you pay me the police, you pay me the police station because the police station was right next to the store. The really and truly the moral about it is that thou shalt not steal. He had a false image of himself because he didn't know that God was grace.
Amen, brethren? Amen. Amen. Okay. So let me get back to what I was saying, So this is the truth. This is a particular kind of error attached to strong emotion. Now when the devil comes to the mind, he knows the truth is there. But he always presents the error with the emotions as a temporary thing. You can always go back to the truth. But he's telling you that because he wants it to bite. But once you bite, because the truth is so powerful, to give up this truth and go for that error, you would have to make a stronger denial for the truth than you ever did. Because you know the truth. So now you have to make a stronger denial of the truth for the error. So when you're doing that, many values that the truth puts in you about yourself, that you view yourself a particular way with the new imagery you have to give it up piece by piece and end up doing things you never thought as a Christian you would do. In other words, the error, facing the truth, denying the truth for the error with the emotion, would make the denial strong to hide that powerful truth. So along comes someone to talk to you. As they begin to talk to you, they tell you the truth. So the truth gets stronger in the estimation in your mind. What would you do? You either acknowledge it and let go of the other one, or begin to resist the truth, hold on to the error, making it become larger than life, the life of Christ, in your mind. And therefore, resisting the truth, becoming stubborn towards truth. You must always remember, resistance of truth is a trait that was developed by Lucifer when he wanted to be God with God. Because angels would have shown him the truth. Yeah. And what would he do? Resist. And that's the reason why he knows when we are following him, we have to take up traits that he developed when he resisted God. So in the end, the person begins to fight against the truth no matter what you tell them. They don't want to hear. They have 1,000 vindications. And always remember, the reason why the devil multiplies error, because the more error means the man will have to take longer to find the truth. And the devil has a lot of delay tactics. Make it longer for you to find the truth. So if there are just two religions in a room, a true and a false, and you don't know which one, you will quickly find the truth because it's one false religion to deal with. But if you have 100 false religions in the room and one truth, it's going to take you longer. Amen, brethren? So what the devil does is that it multiplies error as the person misses the truth. The multiplication of error makes the person close their mind to the plain, simple truth which a child should have been able to see. But it boils down to a person's imaging of themselves. Because once you start to reject the truth and hold on to this, you begin to develop an image of yourself you never thought you had. The devil could virtually get you to do anything. He could get you to rob a bank, and you could say, my God, that is how I act. That is what I did. Because you have taken up an image of yourself, and to ratify that image you have to go further. Not only curse once, not only curse twice, but curse somehow 3 times to give an impression that that's how you are.
Just before that, he chop off a man's head. Just before he cursed, he chop off a man's head.
Yes, yes.
And the picture image I would get, but I don't know if it's right. I don't think he will go delicately so and say, give me your head. I want to believe you went to the neck. Peter, when he chopped
They
it
will
down.
be fired and so the person neck and got the ears off. And Jesus immediately healed. It was healed so fast that the person lost consciousness of what had just happened. But that was for Peter's sake. Now, take me to Colossians. Yes, my dear. Colossians 3. Self-imaging and the Christian imaging school. You see, this is the reason why some of the best way to train your children when they are going to school in a godless environment is to make your children have certain values. Values that you know they will not give up. You must get an assurance for that. You do this by creating habits in the children. For instance, you know that your child prays a certain time. You make sure they pray that time as a habit. You make sure you show them to pray when they face certain situations as a habit. And after you do that a period of time, they begin to understand they're supposed to pray when they're facing a certain situation. And you tell the teacher, Miss or Sir, when they're facing a problem, I need to pray now. But when children see parents rejoicing in the Lord and getting success, then they usually want to follow what the parents are doing more. But then the parents don't have a dynamic religion in the house. It's like a little boy. You see daddy and mommy always taking up the Bible and preaching. The child taking up the Bible and they fake preaching too. Because they see it. And that's the reason why parents must live together with faith before their children. So that when the child sees it, oh, it's working for them, it's going to work for me. Like for instance, mommy and daddy in the house. What? Time to pray. But mommy says, at least let me just go and put this pot on the fire. And daddy said, no, let me belong right here and pray now. And as mommy reached in the kitchen, daddy was belong right there in the kitchen, right where he's cooking. So mommy have to now kneel down there and pray. And the child see that, the child say, what? After a while, the child will begin to recognize that this is something good to do. And you tell your children, you insist to the teacher, you need to pray. If you never saw a minute, you need to pray. And so your child starts to practice that in school. Your child will become like a messiah in school. Develop a following, because other people will do things to other people's children. But when they see yours, they will see yours always striving in adversity. And then they will want to follow your child. But if your child is a weakling, like to compromise very easy. It's only sincere when they are among friends, and not so sincere. But when they are among school, they're not that sincere. They are part and parcel of the tribe or of the hunt in school. Then you don't expect them to do anything good. So you have to train them. Now, not all children keep the training forever. Because Lucifer was trained in the course of heaven before the very presence of God, and he is the worst of the lot. Because it will take quite a lot to turn away from great light. Push yourself to become more evil. And that is the reason why there's nobody in this church here that will remain the same if they turn away from the truth. If you turn away from this truth, you're going to get worse. And that's why once a kid come here, and you commit yourself to the truth here, tell yourself one thing. You will never leave through Christ Jesus. Because if you do, your future is cursed. It will never be so nice for you at all. Because you learn the truth, and to resist the truth, to keep in error, you have to ruin yourself. And the first ruin touches your logic. You didn't hear what I just said? The first ruin touches your what? Your logic, your spiritual logic. And let me tell you, when your spiritual logic goes, they can say eating pork, and they say, but wait, was that person in Tuesday? And they eating pork? Why did it reach so far? It reached so far because of the existence of the truth. You could do virtually what? Anything. That's why sometimes I make it a habit that somebody say, talk to this person about this law, or talk to that person about that law. And I use my judgment to check and see how much to talk. When I discern what's going on, I usually pull back. Because if you talk to them, and they get that great exposure of light, and they resist, they'll get worse faster. And they'll leave faster. So I just stop and leave it, that individual will take longer staying in the presence of the truth. Perhaps somewhere along the line you could help them. Yes, it is good to talk to people, but sometimes they don't talk to everybody about everything wrong because they do it. You have to know when to talk and when not to talk. You have to use your wisdom here. Because sometimes if you're pursuing a person all the time, while it is right to hate what they are doing, and it is good to seek to help them, in some people, they just leave them alone for a while and know when to talk and when not to talk. Does that understand my dear brother? Amen? But that is not encouraging anybody to speculate and be negligent and say, let me don't talk to them, I'll push them. Does that understand my dear brother? Because we all ought to help one another. Alright, so let's get back to this imagery now. We go to Colossians chapter 2. Sorry, chapter 3. Yes, brother, sorry. After this we will stop. Go ahead.
from like they told up and before, and back up to the people that stayed before. But if they continue doing it, they get more motive to do it our next time and they continue before it. And it only happens in the family, the people used to look up to that is very words that don't image behind, they follow up with, and you become more worse and worse. Most of the time you become worse than them to record that fact.
Amen, amen, yes. So somebody sent me a question here about if somebody could take the image that they're supposed to have of themselves away from you. There are husbands and there are wives, there are boyfriends and there are girlfriends that say cruel things to each other. They say things to each other that snatch life from their mind. They are married together, living in the same house, and the things they say and do, they just snatch the truth from you. And if they don't know the Lord and seek His face, you can become 10 times the devil worse than them. And this is the reason why men, especially men, and women ought to watch themselves. Your words must never be used to snatch conviction and motivation and light and truth from a person. Let me give you an illustration here. You get up in the morning and you decide, I'm going to kneel and pray. But the husband tells you, hold on. And he decides to do something else before he prays, while you want to pray. He has not only abdicated his high priestly role in the house and passed it to you, but he has also robbed you of the opportunity together to approach the throne of God. That person that did something like that, if you were to follow them, you will become very unspiritual like that person. There are men and women too that rob their partners or their wife or husband of being closer to God. They constantly say and do things that make you lose the closeness to God. And that is the reason why I have told myself this, and I always encourage people this: never become the burden in a relationship. You didn't hear that one? You didn't hear that one? Never become the burden in a relationship. It is a duty to make things as easy spiritually as possible for the other person. And if you're not married and you're close to somebody, start now. Start now. But some are developing traits that are heading for a crash in the very near future. And just because the atmosphere is peaceful still, they won't stop until the crisis comes. And this is why in this thing is only if you seek the face of God with all your heart. Amen. How much time do we have to beg you that? To do that. Watch this scripture, in Colossians 2. 3:30, 9 and 10. Notice how he structured this verse. He says, lie not one to another. Did you just catch that? People who are supposed to be Christians, he is telling them what? Lie not one to another. So that would mean they're in close communion with each other. It's not like somebody you meet in South as a Christian, but somebody in the environment as a Christian that you can easily lie to. Because if you meet somebody in South, you may lie once or twice whenever you see them, if you do. And usually when you meet somebody from a far away and they are Christian and they come close to you for the first time, you usually try to appear as your best Christian as you are in front of them. So usually you won't lie. Amen? So this is speaking about people who are in close proximity and relationship to each other. Hear what he said. Let's read it again. Lie not one to another, seeing that you have put off the old man with his deeds. That's right. In other words, you're supposed to know. Now, when you say put off the old man, it didn't mean you yourself remove the old man from you. You putting off the old man is repenting and what? Believing that God will remove it. So when you say put off the old man, it means you repented. You believe that God had removed that old man. So you're being reminded, this is what you did. So since this is what you did, watch how you're talking to somebody in your close proximity, the neighbor. But watch out now. Read on. And have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that what? Created him. What? Renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. The image of him that created him, the image of God, that is God himself. So God himself in you is the image of God. But we are being told you put on the new man. And that new man is renewed in knowledge after the image of God. So the knowledge of the new man supposed to keep the image of God or the divine nature in you. Put it the way we say, the divine character supposed to keep you up. The divine nature in you. That's how we put it. So what are we being told here? That you are supposed to identify yourself with the divine what? Character. Are you listening to me? Yes. Watch this again. We're going back to this verse again. I am what? Crucified with Christ. Nevertheless what? I live. Yet not I, but what? Christ liveth in me. This person is identifying his new self with Christ that is in him. And that Christ that is in him is the character of Christ. So it is the character of Christ that has given him his self-identity. Are you listening to me? So he said, well, Brother Medina, translate that into layman's language for me. Simply means, whenever you're walking in the street, whenever you're eating at home, whenever you're talking to people, have in your mind the idea that you are a child of God, given over to God completely. Have that as your mental identity, your mental imaging of yourself. Practical example. You walk and you're going home tonight and you meet people who you know who are not Christian. And they look to give you some kind of a talk to greet you. But when you respond as you think yourself to be. I'm a Christian following Christ, so you respond to them that way. In other words, you don't respond to them the worldly way. You respond to them that way. It's like I am walking in a Muslim area in El Socorro, and a couple of them well said, Salam Alaikum. So I tell him, I say, no, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian. He said, but you look at you, what if you're a Muslim? I said, what? I said, no. I believe that Jesus is God in a temple of flesh. And I believe that He is our Savior. Never me and Islam. He said, wait, they will see you will become a Muslim. How much years now? So He made an image for me. Impose it on me and tell me that is what I will be. But I had to let him know the image I had of myself. Are you listening to me? And totally destroy what he will see. In like manner, you have to think of yourself related to the character of Christ and act that way. To the man, if you know Christ will never short pants, gerrymandering in town or in some party or fall down somewhere behind here. Or to you, the girl, if you know Christ won't want you to dress such and such. Let me tell you something. I had a friend, a girl, who was very, very close friend. We talked and we talked and we talked. Every time I'm meeting her in a way she would place, I would pass by, say hello. And she would talk all the thing about who shoot her boyfriend and all the thing type on her hand and nail, all kind of things. But that girl didn't know how to dress. And they couldn't tell her how to dress. A day I walked into the store and she was like stooping down fixing something in the store. I don't want to tell you what I saw. I saw from standing on top virtually everything when a woman is in a certain period. Could you imagine that's how she dressed? I mean, I had to tear my face because it was like kind of offensive and it looked bad that you're seeing that, you understand? You see, if you have an image of yourself as a Christian, what are you supposed to do? Dress like a Christian. Speak like one. Behave like one. Why? Live like one. Why? Because Christ lives where? In you. And that's your new character. This is the reason why in closing I tell you this. Your new character is the character of Christ. Please let us start. You see, this is the reason why I always tell you, when you're not converted, you're characterless. You will have evil personality traits, evil personality traits which people call character. The only time you have character is when Christ is in you and they get converted. That's the only time you have character. This I understand, my dear brother. So remember these things that we have said here. And remember, self-imaging must take place with the one. Christ was living in you. View yourself that way, okay? And live that way from now on. Let me tell you something. Since Christ's character is beautiful, you will become so beautiful when Christ is seen in you. You didn't hear that one? Nobody likes an impulsive, angry person, a deceitful person. Appears to be beautiful and they cannot be trusted. But if they see the character of Christ in you, you can be old as Rip Van Winkle, so to speak, but you are lovely with the character of Christ. And God add His blessings to you, that you have the character of Christ, which is what we are all attracted to in each other. You didn't hear me? Which is what we are all attracted to in each other. Okay, my dear brethren, please let us bow our heads for prayer. And let us pray. Gracious, loving Father, we thank you for what you have shown us. We ask of you to help us to image ourselves with the character of Christ in us, that we will live like a true Christian, preparing for the end which is swiftly coming. And help us to be sincere about that we may bless ourselves and bless others. As we leave to go home, please keep us safe from all harm, trouble, dangers, and accidents. And help us not to forget you, but to abide in you, since you love us very much. Thank you again for hearing us and blessing us through the truths of Jesus Christ, the plan of salvation. Amen. Amen.